During the time of legal slavery, abolitionists made slavery the #1 issue when voting for candidates. Now, during legal abortion, pro-lifers want you to consider abortion the #1 issue when going to the polls. My guests today hope you'll agree with them. Sherly recently graduated from college and is interning in Washington, D.C. Andrew and Maria are raising 3 young children. Ed, a retired pilot, and Delores, a retired nurse, have raised a family and now volunteer in their community. I joined Andrew and Maria for a day at the park to talk about the upcoming election. What issues are most important to you during this presidential election?
Well, for me, the most important issue looking at who we're going to vote for, at least who I'll vote for president, is who's going to lead our country in promoting and building a culture of life. I think we live in very difficult times, especially as a young family raising children. I want them to grow up in a country that respects and values life. Whichever candidate is going to best, convince me that they're going to protect and promote a culture of life, that's definitely where I'll be, voting and supporting.
I feel the same way. I feel like, creating a society where my children's lives are treasured and are seen as precious and beautiful is really important to me, especially since our daughter Lucy was born with hydrocephalus. She's a beautiful, lovely little girl, and I want a society that values her for what she is.
Would you advocate then that abortion should be the #1 issue for a lot of voters?
I think looking at all the life issues put together, both from end-of-life issues and abortion, and the debate in our country around killing children at the embryonic stage for the sake of furthering research, I think all those issues put together really put forth how are we going to change the culture so that people themselves turn away from abortion, and how are we going to change the legislative side of culture so we can outlaw murder. So I think all those issues put together are definitely the most important issue facing us this election.
And abortion is the most important because it's the most obvious, egregious example of the culture of death. When you can see the unborn child, sometimes when they're being practically born, and then you kill that child, it's hard to turn your eyes from that. So if you can't, to me, it's like if someone doesn't understand the evil going on there, it's hard for me to trust them on other issues because they obviously don't understand the dignity of a human person.
Shirley, does it really matter what the values and morals are of the President of the United States?
It does matter, because I think that for anyone to hold a leadership position, whether it's in government or anything else, that person needs to be someone who can discern what is right and what is wrong. And if we don't pay attention to the moral character of the person, you have people like Hitler or Saddam Hussein, or people who can allow atrocities against human beings without acknowledging that we all have rights that can't be taken away.
So, do you have an opinion about embryonic stem cell research?
Yes, I do. Embryonic stem cell research is closely aligned with abortion. The reason why many pro-lifers, most pro-lifers I would say, are also against abortion in the first trimester is because we believe that life begins at conception.
Let's talk about embryonic stem cell research. There are those who say stopping it will prevent cures for many diseases. What's your opinion about that?
I think stem cell research is a really important area for the health of our country and important research to go forward. But on the one hand, it's completely immoral to do research that takes the life of another human being or puts them at risk to achieve good ends of improving medicine, improving science. And I think the great thing currently is that we don't even need to. We've seen such tremendous advances in adult stem cell research. Stem cells that can be taken from our own bodies and then reconfigured and put back in to help cure diseases. I think it's been truly amazing.
Now, the two of you hold very strong pro-life views regarding the life issues. Do you think a majority of your peers, age group that you are now, share those values?
Our age group, I would say, but I don't know about the younger. Because, as I said, abortion was just so foreign to us. I mean, when we were growing up, someone had an abortion, that was like, oh my gosh, you never heard of such a thing. I might have heard of one time that I knew of someone that had an abortion, and that was a big deal. They, you know, they were in great jeopardy, and but today it's so normal for our children. They grew up with it. And it's not reinforced anywhere in society that life is a gift from God from the day of conception until the day you die.
Do you think many of the people your age feel the same way you do?
Apathetically, I think that they hear that it's women's right to choose. So, and they believe in the right to control your destiny, control your body. So they run with it, but I don't think they really know what abortion is.
So you think once they learn more about the issue, they'll be more pro-life?
I do. I think most people who are pro-choice, I think if you show them the development of the unborn child, if you even educate them about the history of Roe v. Wade, the case itself was a false case, the abortion industry, if you educate them on a life issue from all aspects, that they'll either become pro-life or it'll give them something to think more about the issue.
When Roe versus Wade became law, we lost respect for all life.
You've seen politics change over these last 50 years. Tell me how that has evolved.
Well, it seems to be incremental. They like to move things a little step at a time. You know, when you started watching the TV became very popular, the first thing they started to do was downgrade the father. He was always the fool, you know, incompetent and like that, and it was an attack on the family. And once you break down the family, now it's like scattering the sheep, and the children aren't under the guidance that they should be under. It's led us to single-parent families, which is an imbalance. And this adds to all the problems, and it's not fair for the children and the community.
When we return, we'll talk about the issue of euthanasia, and my guests forecast the future of our nation. This week I'm talking with people, just like you, about the 2008 election, specifically about their view on the life issues and the role it plays in how they vote. Sherly, do you think euthanasia is one of the life issues?
Yes, I do. We don't hear about it a lot in the media because the abortion issue is obviously something that is more pervasive in our society. But it is a life issue because it goes back to the argument that that what makes us worthy is not what we can contribute to society or how intelligent we are. It's the fact that we are human beings, that we are breathing, we are alive. And with euthanasia, the mentality with euthanasia is that, well, you may still be breathing, but because you are no longer contributing to society and because you are a burden to society, we're just going to kill you, basically. And that's not right.
Delores, how about you? How do you think the next president could make life difficult or impossible for you as regard to euthanasia?
By another Roe versus Wade for euthanasia. I mean, if it becomes law of the land that you can kill those who are mentally impaired or old, then that's the price we'll have to pay.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's a real threat? I do.
When Roe versus Wade became law, people said, you know, this is the beginning. Now watch euthanasia come. And people said, oh, you got to be crazy. We're not going to kill people. Euthanasia. Oh, no. We have assisted suicide. We had to send a doctor to jail who helped a lot of people kill themselves, who, if they had been given love and encouragement, they might not have done that.
So in your opinion, how do you think the next president will impact the abortion issue in America?
I think the biggest impact is obviously there's a couple of justices on the Supreme Court who are getting older, and I think we could see some retirements, and putting justices on the Supreme Court that will acknowledge the dignity of the human person and realize that they are not called to act as judicial fiats in this country is really important. And I think the next president will probably be making a couple of judicial nominations. So I think that's the biggest impact they're going to have on the debate.
Where do you think we're headed as a nation?
Well, it looks like we're headed to socialism. We've got candidates that are, well, one in particular is going to take care of everybody, which is a real bad thing. Any government, I think it was Thomas Jefferson said that any government that can supply you with everything you need can take everything you have. And people are just turning their lives over to the government. That's what's going to happen.
In the vein of life issues, where do you see the nation headed?
I see the nation turning away from God. We're losing respect for all life. We need to take a good look at where we are.
In the years after abortion was legalized, the number of abortions increased to its peak. Then, during the 80s, abortion was on a steady decline. And according to the Alan Guttmacher Institute, it's been on a decline ever since. However, abortion is still considered the #1 surgical procedure performed in the United States. And 1.2 million unborn babies are aborted each year. What happens if a pro-abortion president is elected?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that if a pro-abortion president is elected, we'll likely see abortions in the United States, increase again. For over the last decade, we've seen abortions in the United States steadily decline. But right now, with a pro-abortion Senate and a pro-abortion House of Representatives, we'll likely see new legislation and passed and signed by a pro-abortion president that would undo the partial birth abortion ban, and perhaps even begin funding, using our tax dollars to pay for abortions. I think it'd be disastrous.
How important is the issue of abortion in this election?
Apparently, it's not coming up as we had hoped it would. I mean, because there's a big difference between the two candidates. And this would carry over into the Supreme Court nominations and the whole tenure of the country. The president, although he has balance with the Congress and the Senate, which is designed to be, he still sets the tone.
Coming up next, do you feel that your vote is important in the election? In a short time, Americans will be choosing their next president. This new resident of the Oval Office will decide who sits on the U.S. Supreme Court. This will likely impact the next 20 years of federal laws. This week, we're talking to average citizens about what issues are most important to them and what they feel is at stake in the election. Do you feel that your vote is important in the election?
100%. The last couple elections, presidential elections came down to, a couple thousands of votes. 500
votes in Florida and thousands of votes in Ohio. We would have had different election results.
I think it counts 100%.
I also think it's important that, I think we always focus on the presidential elections because they're the biggest, they're the most significant, that's what most people focus on. But also, we elect, senators, representatives, and state and local officials that 100%. Also have sometimes even bigger direct impacts on our lives and on our communities in creating, communities that can value and respect life. So, and especially in those contexts, it's a much smaller group of people that are voting, so your vote counts more. Recognizing if I'm one of 300 million Americans who can vote in the presidential election, it's important. It's not likely that my vote's going to tip the scale in that case, but it very well might in a House race or in a local election, part of my community, where they're going to be making decisions, obviously not about whether or not abortion is going to be legal or not, but they'll make decisions, restrictions, but also they'll make decisions on, how are we going to spend our local tax dollars? Are we going to spend them in a way that promotes and subsidizes abortion, or are we going to spend them in a way that, promotes and subsidizes choosing life?
Do you see any other ways in which a new president could impact the future of our nation regarding abortion?
If we do away with the funding, I know we have just suffered here in our state. They've taken our state money and given it to Planned Parenthood when we tried to prevent it, and we weren't able to do that. If he can be a shining light for life, a president that would be strong on that, maybe he can encourage the things to be done that are trying to get done. And there's a lot of good people out there working in the Congress trying to pass bills and stuff to curtail this terrible Holocaust.
So you're saying the president should be able to help defund the abortion industry, in effect?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I would hope so, yes.
So Delores, how would you say it matters to our nation if we have a president who holds traditional moral values versus one who doesn't?
It brings us up to the higher good, and it uplifts us to see a president that respects his family, respects and loves his country, and is there to serve, not for a political future.
On November 4th, America's building blocks, people just like you, will head to the voting booths to elect the next leader of our nation. Will the next president represent your morals and values? As a voter, that's entirely up to you. When we come back, Maria challenges Congress to set aside politics on the life issues. Sherly discusses her views on democracy, and the Millers encourage people to rekindle their pride in America. Plus, your chance to win a free laptop computer. All this when we return. Andrew, Maria, and their 3 young children are America's future. As they, along with thousands of other families, look to the future, there's a chance for renewal in our country. You're the parents of 3 children, small children. How does that affect the way you look at issues of the day in regard to elections?
It's really brought home the issue of beginning of life issues, right? So in the last several years, we've had 3 children. My wife's been pregnant 3 times. 3 births.
Miraculous.
And we've experienced the miracle of life, about how, we as a married couple with, God's help create new life, and how it's miraculous how, Maria can bring that new life into the world, and we have these beautiful children that are born. And of course, with technology, we've been able to see our children all along the way through ultrasounds. And it's really crystallized for me the humanity of an unborn child. My children, just short years or months ago, were unborn and lived in utero. And the idea that our culture says it's okay to kill one, kind of really is jarring. I've long thought that abortion was wrong, but since becoming a father, it's just struck me even more to a core of how terrible that is. That people can do that in our society, and that these precious, beautiful children wouldn't be here. That we could kill them.
I guess it was being a mother and being pregnant. I can understand the fear women in crisis pregnancies experience, and how they often feel trapped. And I would like it if, liberal conservative sides of the aisle could come together to not only just to legislatively state, like, this is a human being, this unborn child, but also to provide the support and the, the society as a whole would come to the aid of these women.
What's the one thing that you want to do to impact the future of our nation?
I think the most simple thing that they can do right now is to know what is going on in government, like what kind of bills are they proposing, letting my friends know, letting my family members know what they're proposing, having them contact the representative and voicing their opinion, basically educating the people around me about the issues that I care about and the issues that they care about, and encouraging them to be more active. We live in a democracy where we have the opportunity to go out and vote. It's letting the country, the nation know what the American people want. And if everyone were to say, well, my vote doesn't count and stay home, then what you have is an ineffective democratic system. In order for a democracy to work, it's important that first the people are educated about what's going on, and second, the people are passionate enough to come out and do something about it.
Ed and I both served in the military. I was an Air Force nurse and he was a jet pilot. And I was proud of my country. And I feel that we can change this country, we the average citizens. We can start paying attention to what our candidates are saying and say, no way, this is what we want. We want to be the great nation that we're supposed to be.
In November, you've got a very important decision to make. If old Honest Abe were still with us, I think he'd encourage us to support the candidates that vote for the life and liberty of all our citizens, including unborn babies. And remember, your one vote really does make a difference. Thanks for watching. As you've heard from our guests today, changing our nation is in your hands. Go to facinglife.tv and register to vote. It's the first step to making a positive impact in America. Once you're a registered voter, print out your form and mail it to us. Then we'll enter you into a drawing for a free laptop computer. We're serious about having you make a difference for our nation. If you're already registered, take our online poll to enter. For more information, go to facinglife.tv.